Do you believe there are still villages and homes in our world that cling to vertical cliffs, hang high above the clouds, or hide in places so extreme that simply looking at them makes people hesitate? From towering rock walls and ancient caves to lonely stone pillars and deep canyons, humans have found ways to build lives in places that seem impossible to inhabit. Some communities must climb thousands of stone steps to reach home. Some villages sit on the edge of cliffs hundreds of feet above the ground. And some monasteries can only be reached by dangerous paths suspended between rock and sky. For hundreds and sometimes even thousands of years, these remarkable structures have endured earthquakes, storms, snow, and some of the harshest conditions on Earth. Today, we will explore the most extraordinary villages and homes on the planet, where the line between survival, courage, and the impossible almost disappears. Fanjingshan, China. Rising above the cloud layer at 8,438 feet, this ancient mountain has endured for 1,400,000,000 years as a lone witness to time. The journey to touch the sky requires iron will, as you must conquer nearly 9,000 steep steps, clinging tightly to the cliffside. Directly above a deep yawning chasm, a narrow stone bridge connects two peaks at an altitude of 8,200 feet, creating a breathtakingly precarious wonder. This is the exclusive kingdom of the rare Guizhou golden monkeys, spirits from the Ice Age, still remaining amidst the great forest. The landscape becomes even more surreal, with a 33-foot-tall mushroom-shaped rock balancing absurdly on a tiny base through millions of years of storms. Rising above all earthly worries, this sacred space is where humans find absolute inner peace amidst the floating ocean of clouds. Bonifacio Cliff Houses, France. Bonifacio is a strange town sitting dangerously on white limestone cliffs at the southern tip of Corsica, where land and sea seem to merge. The landscape is overwhelming, with a sharp contrast between the blinding white rock in the sun and the deep emerald green color of the water. From a distance, the entire cliff looks like a giant layer cake made of countless thin sheets of sedimentary rock stacked on top of each other. The ancient houses sit at a height of about 230 feet, ignoring the laws of physics to reach out over the vertical edge. The scary part is that ocean waves have eaten away the base to create deep, hollow caves, making the town above look like it is floating in the air without support. Human determination is also shown by the steep staircase cut straight into the rock, which legend says was finished by soldiers in just a single night. Bivacco Buffa di Perero, Italy. Bearing the title of the loneliest house in the world, this shelter is abandoned among the clouds at a blinding altitude of 9,055 feet. In winter, this place turns into an icy hell when facing hurricanes over 60 miles per hour, and temperatures dropping to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. To survive enemy artillery binoculars, its facade was perfectly camouflaged, with grey wood and stones blending into the natural color of the mountain. This shabby cabin is plugged deep into a hollow limestone cave, hanging precariously on a perfectly vertical cliff. Today, the only way to access this ruin is to swing on rusty steel cable systems suspended over the edge of the abyss. Cliffside Capsule, Peru. Hanging suspended at 1,312 feet on a vertical cliff, this crystal capsule erases all safety distances between your sleep and the abyss. The safety rules here are extremely harsh, as it strictly forbids anyone with a history of sleepwalking or panic in confined spaces from staying. To maintain life among the clouds, each room must operate itself using solar power and stored water without any cables from the ground. The check-in journey is a true challenge, as you must personally cling to 400 precarious steel steps to climb to the cliff top. The Frying Pan Tower, United States. A lone rusting relic in the open Atlantic, the Frying Pan Tower sits more than 30 miles from land with no natural shelter. Because the sea can be violent and the wind unpredictable, the safest way up is often a helicopter landing on a shaking rooftop pad. What many people do not expect is that the tower runs on about 98% solar power, saving fuel for heavy work like welding, and it is also used for cameras and marine research. It began as an offshore light station in the 1960s, was later abandoned as corrosion and danger grew, and then reworked into a self-serve extreme stay. Built as a Texas tower from 1964 to 1966, it was automated in 1979 and deactivated in 2003 as modern navigation took over. Everyone must sign a waiver, because if a storm arrives, rescue can be impossible for days out on the ocean. Manarola, Italy. As if a paint box spilled onto black cliff rock, Manarola flashes with rainbow houses pushing toward the deep blue Mediterranean. Cars are banned inside, so you mainly hear waves and a church bell from the 14th century. People move through tight lanes and stone steps, while the slope behind is held by terraced vineyards and dry stone walls without mortar. Around the year 1000, the site was chosen for lookout and defense, and homes grew upward in 3 to 5 stories, packed like a wall against pirates. That hard partnership between humans and steep land helped the wider landscape earn UNESCO World Heritage status in 1997. The brutal twist is, there is no sand, so you step from jagged rock ledges straight into deep water below the stairs. Lauterbrunnen. Even its name, which means many springs, already says a lot, because this place has 72 waterfalls dropping straight from high cliffs into the valley floor. Because the mountain walls are so high, sunlight struggles to reach the ground, and cold, wet mist almost always hangs in the air, giving the whole place a dreamy and slightly sad feeling. Yet beneath that haze lie green fields, small wooden houses, and the soft ringing of cowbells, creating a peace that feels strangely gentle. What makes it even more intense is that above this calm scene hang huge masses of cold, sharp limestone, so the beauty here feels both inviting and full of tension. Those same rock walls rising thousands of feet have also turned the valley into a special destination for people who love dangerous skydives through open air. Maybe that is why this magical landscape became the inspiration for the famous Hidden Elf Valley in The Lord of the Rings. Predjama Castle, Slovenia. Predjama Castle looks like a white fang driven into a dark cave mouth, clinging to a limestone cliff about 403 feet high. A natural fissure leading out behind the mountain let defenders quietly bring in food even while enemies sealed the front. Behind the fortress spreads a 4-level cave maze with dripping stalactites, cold, damp pockets, and deep, lightless chasms. Guinness World Records lists it as the largest cave castle in the world, and its current Renaissance form was rebuilt in 1570, where brickwork seems to merge into the rock. In the sleeping rooms, the back wall can be wet cave stone, with wooden stairs that disappear straight into the mountain's darkness. The site is recorded as early as 1274, and it later saw the most ironic end when the Knight Erasm was hit by a cannonball while using a cliffside toilet at the thinnest wall. Uplisike, Georgia. Uplisike stands like a giant, melting wax candle amidst the windy highlands of Georgia. A 135-foot secret tunnel pierces the mountain, once the only escape route during sieges. Ancients carved an open-air theater into the stone with perfect acoustics, carrying sound hundreds of feet. This place also possesses an ancient pharmacy with stone niches used to prepare medicines 1,000 years ago. New religious power is evident through a brick church built atop the foundations of old pagan temples. Once bustling on the Silk Road, this empire turned into desolate ruins under the Mongol conquest. The Katsky Pillar rises from the lush valley like a massive finger of nature, pointing directly toward the sky. The summit covers only 150 square meters, providing a tiny and precarious foundation for the ancient church perched near the edge. Standing 40 meters tall, roughly the height of a 13-story building, this monolith remains completely isolated from the surrounding terrain. Having been abandoned for 500 years since the Ottoman era, this wonder has become an enduring symbol of faith between earth and heaven. At sunset, the limestone walls absorb the fading light and turn a vibrant orange, looking like a glowing torch suspended in mid-air. Deep within this very rock, researchers discovered the remains of a hermit who had rested in total silence for 600 years. Foroglio. Set right beneath a giant waterfall about 350 feet high, Foroglio looks like a stone village from an old story, so beautiful that it almost does not feel real. In the modern world, the people here still refuse the power grid in order to protect a way of life from the 15th century and stone houses that have stood for more than 500 years. From the walls to the roofs, everything is built from grey stone, so the whole village seems to melt into the cold mountain behind it. Each day, the falling water throws up a white mist that covers the narrow paths and often creates lines of rainbow right under your feet. To survive strong wind and heavy snow, many roofs are made from thin stone slabs that still weigh more than 20,000 pounds. And because there is no electricity, many families still use deep stone cellars under the ground to keep food cool, like a refrigerator from centuries ago. Wengen. Hanging on a sunny rock shelf right beside a deep drop, this village is a place where old luxury stands face to face with a cold and steep mountain world. Right behind the village, an old pine forest is protected very strictly because it is almost the last shield against avalanches and falling rock from above. When winter comes, a place with only about 1,300 permanent residents suddenly has to carry more than 10,000 people, making life on the cliff feel even more intense. To reach this height of about 4,180 feet, everyone must take a mountain train more than 100 years old that slowly climbs along the edge because no car road connects it to the world below. That same railway once helped wealthy visitors pull huge amounts of material uphill and turn a poor farming village into a line of grand wooden hotels. But even the movement of goods here still depends on tiny electric carts and slow hand wagons, a reminder that people must still give way to the power of the mountain. Danka Village, India. Danka is a strange village perched precariously on soft, ancient lake sediment instead of solid rock at an altitude of nearly 12,800 feet. The color blending makes the houses look like giant termite mounds growing naturally from the gray-brown cliff rather than human structures. The ancients built them using only sun-dried mud bricks and local wood without using any modern binding materials like cement. Looking down into the deep gorge from here, you will see two large rivers merging to form a Y shape with glittering silver sandbars. It is hard to believe that this desolate place was once the glorious capital of an entire valley kingdom before being forgotten by time. Today, the entire site faces the risk of being completely wiped out by natural erosion, ranking among the most endangered heritage sites globally. Madonna della Corona Sanctuary, Italy. From far away, Madonna della Corona looks like an illusion, floating in mid-air, brutally wedged into a vertical cliff. To get close, you follow steep stair paths cut along the edge, and thick fog can swallow the route like you are walking into cloud. Beyond the hanging church, look, it is tied to a sacred story from 1522 when a Pietà statue, about 28 inches tall, was said to appear after turmoil on the island of Rhodes. The sanctuary sits at about 2,539 feet above sea level, with sheer limestone behind it and a deep valley falling away in front. The sharpest detail is that part of the wall and dome are not masonry at all, because living rock was carved into the structure, and you can still feel cool dampness seeping from stone. After a major restoration in 1974, many parts were rebuilt for safety, yet it still feels half human-made and half mountain. Morcote. Morcote glitters beside Lake Lugano like a painting, where Swiss order and Italian romance blend into one enchanting scene. Beneath the old waterfront houses stretch ancient vaulted arcades, where the atmosphere of the Renaissance still seems to linger. The lake below reaches more than 900 feet deep, and that great mass of water helps keep the area milder, so palms and magnolias can thrive among the mountains. Climbing the steep stone steps leads upward to sweeping views that open across the lake and toward the border mountains beyond. The village also holds a terraced cemetery that feels both deeply quiet and carefully shaped like a work of art. Altogether, this place feels like a refined answer to a harsh landscape, where people created beauty on a steep limestone slope without breaking its natural grace. Al-Hajara, Yemen. At an altitude of 7,218 feet, the great fortress of Al-Hajara is honored by humanity as the ancient skyscraper city. The most magical thing is that the house foundations completely blend with the cliff, making it impossible to recognize the starting point of the structure. Ancients skillfully carved each stone, stacking them using gravity locks without needing a single drop of mortar. For defense purposes, the ground floor was used to keep livestock, creating a ruthless buffer shield to stop any attacks. Since the 11th century, these boulder apartments have proudly risen 5 to 6 floors, leaving behind the ground houses of the West from the same era. The rough surface of the towers is also decorated with pure white gypsum patterns, like magical tattoos carved into the flesh of the mountain. Drina River House, Serbia. A wooden cabin, no bigger than a box, sits on a lone rock in the rushing Drina River, which is why many call it the loneliest house in the world. On calm days, people usually reach it only by boat or by swimming out, because there is nothing around it but swirling water and slick stone. After so many flood losses, the current build is designed to release under pressure, letting parts of the walls and roof give way, so water can pass through instead of snapping the whole frame. Everything clings to a single cast limestone block, polished smooth by time and almost bare, with no soil or roots to hold on. Since it first appeared in 1968, the river has torn it apart about 7 times, leaving broken timber to drift away. What makes it unforgettable is not only the risk, but the fact that it keeps being rebuilt, turning a tiny hut into a symbol of stubborn human resilience against nature. Shibam, Yemen. Rising into the desert sky, Long before steel cores, Shibam is a forest of ancient mud towers packed like early skyscrapers. From afar, glossy brown blocks stand on cracked, bare ground, yet one heavy rain can dissolve mortar and bring a whole tower down. They are made from sun-dried mud brick mixed with earth, straw, and water, and ground floor walls can be 3 to 4 feet thick to cool days and warm nights. UNESCO calls it the Manhattan of the Desert, inscribed it as World Heritage in 1982, and later listed it in danger in 2015 because of conflict. About 500 towers are squeezed into roughly 64 acres, so the city has to grow upward instead of outward. A fortified wall and a grid of narrow streets shape the plan. Lower floors keep few windows for defense, and the outer mud skin must be replastered often to resist wind and rain. Choqquequirao, Peru. Buried entirely amidst the Andes Mountains, the desolate fortress of Choqquequirao is praised by the world as the incredibly mysterious stolen city of gold. The most magical highlight here is 24 pure white quartz llama figures permanently inlaid into the steeply rising walls by ancient people. Those walls belong to a giant terrace system clinging tightly to mountain slopes of 70 to 80 degrees right below a flattened mountain peak. To touch this sacred realm, you must trade it for 4 to 5 days of exhausting walking, dropping down a 4,921-foot deep canyon and then climbing back up a 4,921-foot vertical cliff. Stein am Rhein. Like a jewel of many colors held still by time, this town makes you feel as if the 16th century is still resting on the walls in front of you. Seen from above, it looks almost like a half-island, with one side facing wide water and the other holding the river as it narrows and moves on. What is even more surprising is that the town has kept almost all of its old shape from centuries ago. So walking here feels like stepping through a crack in time. At the very place where the Rhine begins its long journey, the quiet old houses stand out even more beside water that never stops moving. On those front walls, noble families once hired painters to cover their homes with stories of history and faith, turning each house into a clear sign of status. And because its name means stone on the Rhine, this place still feels like a symbol of beauty, endurance, and strong life beside powerful water. San Juan de Gaztelugatx, Spain. Out in the open sea, Gaztelugatxi looks like a massive dragon's back, twisting through the deep blue waters of Spain. When the mist rolls in, the island turns into a floating world in the clouds, hiding the line where the ocean ends and the sky begins. The ocean here is dangerously powerful, with waves as tall as 6 meters, constantly crashing against the island's rocky base. An old tradition says that everyone must ring the church bell 3 times to chase away bad spirits and bring good luck. This incredible place became famous as the mythical fortress of Dragonstone on screen, showing its surreal beauty to the whole world. To reach the very top, you have to climb 241 steep stone steps, a walk that challenges both your legs and your heart. Ronda, Spain. Perched high on a limestone block at an altitude of 2,428 feet, this regal urban area looks like an indestructible natural fortress. The small river at the bottom patiently eroded the hard rock for 5 million continuous years to tear this city in half. The steep crack dividing the urban area is 394 feet deep and 223 feet wide, creating a giant trap, stripping away any chance of survival. Right on that line of life and death, traditional white-walled houses recklessly push their balconies to hang suspended in empty space. To stitch this wound, humans exhausted their strength for 42 continuous years, carving boulders to erect the Great Bridge. The most chilling thing is that hidden right above the stone bridge arch is a dark underground room, once used as a cruel torture prison. Ostrog Monastery, Montenegro. Ostrog Monastery looks like a white ribbon growing from a vertical cliff, where it is hard to tell natural cave from human wall. The most intense part is the barefoot pilgrimage, as many people walk about 2 miles uphill and treat each painful step like a prayer. After a major fire, much of the complex was rebuilt from 1923 to 1926, yet it still feels fused to the rock. The monastery sits near 3,000 feet above sea level and uses 2 natural cave recesses as both foundation and permanent roof, overlooking a deep valley. Surrounded by rain-scarred limestone, full of cracks and hollows, it was founded in the 1660s as a last refuge in harsh times. It keeps the relics of Saint Basil, believed to remain incorrupt, and it draws Orthodox, Catholic, and Muslim visitors who come to pray. St. George Monastery, Israel. Perched defiantly against the harshness of the deadly canyon, St. George Monastery appears as a hanging wonder suspended in midair. The brilliant cobalt blue domes stand out against the scorched golden cliffs, creating a proud and magnificent mirage in the desert. This peculiar structure has absolutely no independent foundation, clinging to the mountainside like a parasite for 1,600 years. Reigning at a location 244 meters below sea level, this area is a literal furnace, with temperatures frequently reaching 43 degrees Celsius. Within the dark stone heart, the monastery still preserves the remains of martyred monks, bearing witness to an epic and tragic history. To witness this sacred sanctuary, visitors must pay with a great deal of sweat by overcoming a steep path equivalent to 150 meters. Rocamadour, France. Rocamadour is a stacked village where homes and sanctuaries climb a limestone cliff about 490 feet high. Many buildings have little to no separate foundation, using the rock itself as floor and ceiling, and at sunset, the cliff can glow like a giant bar of gold. Its vertical layout mirrors an old feudal order, with ordinary life below, clergy in the middle, and a castle at the top. To reach the sanctuary level, you climb 216 stone steps, and in the past, some pilgrims even went up on their knees as penance. The cliff also carries the legend of Durandal, a sword fixed in a rock crevice with a chain, hanging like a story, made solid. At the heart of the site is the Black Madonna, carved from walnut wood and darkened over centuries by candle smoke and time. Saint-Ursanne. Saint-Ursanne feels like an enchanting living museum, resting quietly in the Jura Valley with its medieval beauty still remarkably preserved. The town lies deep at the bottom of the valley, protected by steep, forested slopes that make it feel far removed from the modern world. At its heart stands the old monastery and its carved stone cloister, where Romanesque strength and Gothic elegance meet in the same sacred space. Local legend says the hermit who founded this place once tamed a great bear, giving the town an added sense of mystery and old spiritual power. The clear Doubs River reflects the famous four-arched stone bridge so beautifully that the whole scene seems to float between water and memory. More than a beautiful destination, this place feels like a symbol of preservation, where time has slowed down to protect the values of an older world. Schwelbrunn. High on a ridge about 3,200 feet above sea level, Schwelbrunn feels open and quiet, like a village resting between wind and pasture. In that setting, it still keeps a strong rural rhythm, with fields, farms, and old traditions that remain part of daily life. That is why it is valued as a village of national importance, not because it is large, but because so much of its old form has remained whole. Few people realize that the name Schwelbrunn was already written down in the year 1268, showing how long people have held on to life on this hillside. Its shape became clear after the church was built in 1648, and from the early 19th century onward, the village changed very little. And because of its high clear air, Schwelbrunn also became known as a mountain health resort in the 1870s, which makes its calm beauty feel even more lasting. Vadzia, Georgia. Experience. A thrilling sensation with a great underground megacity that once perfectly turned invisible before being ruthlessly completely unmasked by nature. Under the order of a 12th century queen, over 6,000 caves were hollowed out to hide 50,000 civilians and soldiers for many months. This steep mountainside is a giant anthill network carved deep into the rock core, towering 164 feet high with 13 interwoven floors. That camouflage ended when a 13th century earthquake tore off the 49-foot thick protective rock layer, exposing the labyrinth to the light. Later, the destructive fire of the invaders created a thick black soot layer, unintentionally becoming a shield to preserve the ancient frescoes. Miraculously, the secret underground spring from the heart of the mountain still resiliently supplies 44,909 gallons of pure water every day until now. Popa Tangkalat, Myanmar. Perched precariously on a volcanic core, piercing the clouds at an altitude of 2,418 feet, this monastery shines arrogantly like a solid gold crown. The harshest religious rule here is that everyone is forced to completely remove their shoes and socks right from the first steps. Pilgrims will not have a leisurely elevator, but must exhaust their strength to climb over 777 precarious steep stone steps themselves. Strangely, this monolithic magma core is full of magnetism, causing all compasses to spin wildly out of control when approaching the cliff. Locals also pass down a terrifying ban that wearing red or black clothes is strictly forbidden to avoid awakening the wrath of evil spirits. Ultimately, dragging bare feet across 777 slippery steps swarming with wild monkey waste is the most terrifying psychological torture. Lavatetsu. What first stays in people's minds here is the clear emerald water, which makes it feel as if swimmers are floating inside a giant crystal. Right below the bridge, pools deeper than 32 feet open inside the dark green water, so this place feels peaceful, but also gives many people the urge to jump in at least once. Around that water stand, old stone houses resting on the mountain slope, making human life blend naturally into the forest and rock. Crossing above it all is a two-arched stone bridge from the 17th century, badly damaged by a great flood in 1868, and carefully rebuilt in 1960 to keep its old beauty alive. Under the river, the flow of thousands of years has smoothed the granite into soft, shining curves, making the whole scene look like a work of art placed there on purpose. And even though it is part of Switzerland, the place still feels deeply Italian, from the language and food to the slow and relaxed life beside the clear river. Zermatt. The whole village feels like a grand stage, where every street and rooftop is arranged to keep your eyes fixed on the giant pyramid-shaped mountain above. Because of that, building rules here are very strict, from height to roof angle, so no new structure can block the view of that symbol. At about 5,300 feet above sea level and surrounded by huge glaciers, this place even allows skiing all 365 days of the year. Even more unusual, the town completely bans fuel-powered cars. So the air holds only the smell of pine, cold snow, and the gentle sound of horse carriages moving through the streets. Yet in the middle of all that clean beauty and glamour stands a cemetery for more than 500 climbers lost to snowstorms and falling rock, a reminder that this place is always both magical and severe. Between the luxury hotels, old black wooden houses still stand on round stone bases like mushrooms, recalling the time when people had to keep mice away from stored food through the long winter. Sassi di Matera, Italy. Welcome to Matera, a magnificent stone city in Italy where our ancestors persistently carved their lives into the cliffs for 12,000 years. The charm of these caves lies in their natural air conditioning, which stays at a steady 60 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the harsh weather outside. Though it was once forgotten as a national shame, and thousands were forced to leave in the mid-20th century, Matera has reborn as a human treasure. The city's structure is very unique because the roofs of the lower houses serve as the foundations and walkways for the homes built higher up. With a uniform yellow limestone tone, the entire city looks like a giant sculpture rising from the wild canyon. Beneath the ancient streets lies a grand system of underground water cathedrals that have stored and filtered rainwater since ancient times. Sollio. Sollio rests on a sunny mountain terrace, a place once described by the painter Segantini as the threshold of paradise on earth. Its narrow paths twist between old stone houses and pass through deep archways where the air still seems to carry the quiet breath of earlier centuries. From the village, the view stretches toward the Bondasca Glacier, adding a cold and haunting presence to the peaceful alpine scene. Directly across the valley rise the Sciora Peaks, 30-million-year-old granite towers that cut sharply into the sky above the clouds. Below the settlement spreads one of Europe's oldest and largest chestnut forests, turning the whole valley brilliant gold in October. With its stone strength, mountain silence, and soft gardens of roses, this place feels like a rare balance between alpine severity and tender beauty. Kandovan, Iran. Fleeing from the savage massacre of Mongol cavalry 700 years ago, humans desperately carved into the heart of a volcano to find a way to survive. This place rejects all flatness, forcing residents to move across steep and jagged stone stairs clinging along the giant mountainside. They hollow deep into the rock to create apartments 2 to 4 stories high, using the ground floor to pen animals and upper floors for shelter. The volcanic core structure was initially very easy to dig, but as soon as it touched the air, the rock surface immediately reacted and hardened like steel armor. Thousands of years of sweeping blizzards have eroded the cliff into hundreds of sharp rock peaks 33 to 49 feet high, exactly like melting wax blocks. With a natural protective wall up to 7 feet thick, these giant termite mounds strip away all sound vibrations, imprisoning humans in a chilling, absolute silence. Castellfollit de la Roca, Spain. Castellfollit de la Roca lives on a volcanic knife edge, where a few steps from a backyard can become open air and a sheer drop. The whole town is squeezed into one main street along the ridge, while rows of houses grip the rim as if holding on. This dark wall exists because 2 cooled lava layers stacked here, roughly 217,000 and 192,000 years old. As the lava cooled, the basalt cracked into upright hexagonal columns that resemble the pipes of a giant organ. The village sits on a cliff, about 164 feet high and almost 1 mile long, sharp like the prow of a stone ship, cutting through the valley. Only about 1,000 people live on this narrow strip, pinned between the meeting point of 2 rivers, where every bit of land feels priceless. Grindelwald. Hidden under the shadow of giant rock walls, this village looks gentle and calm, with bright green grass and small wooden roofs resting on the mountain slope. To fully see that beauty, you have to walk on a metal path fixed right into the cliff, where one look down is enough to make your heart tighten. But above that peaceful scene rises a famous group of 3 peaks, dark and sharp, with one mountain wall climbing thousands of feet, almost like a barrier across the sky. That is why this place leaves such a deep mark, because the soft fields below and the heavy stone above stand in such a strong contrast. In spring and summer, the hills are dotted with countless tiny wildflowers, while the wooden houses stay spread apart to lower the danger of being struck by heavy snow at the same time. When night falls, warm yellow light shines from the small windows and makes the whole mountainside glow like a group of fireflies gathering together in the cold. Sasfi. Surrounded by 13 peaks all rising above 13,000 feet, this village looks as if it is resting inside a giant icy horseshoe. When evening comes, yellow light begins to shine from the small windows, making the frozen white world feel softer and warmer. Right beneath those walls of ice, dark brown wooden houses sit quietly on the snow, so the village feels like an old memory that has not faded away. What makes it even more special is that fuel-powered cars are completely banned here, leaving only clear, cold air and a very quiet rhythm of life. Because the glacier comes so close to the village, temperatures here often stay about 9 to 18 degrees Fahrenheit colder than nearby places, and the cold seems to flow straight into every small path. Maybe that sad but romantic beauty is why this place has stayed in so many people's memories through the images of last Christmas. Koripo. Hidden on a steep green mountainside, Koripo is so small that from far away it looks like only a few stone roofs left behind in the forest. When you walk through its narrow paths and small open spaces, It feels less like visiting a tourist place and more like stepping into a life that is very slow and very real. There was a time when the whole village had only around a dozen residents left, so its old houses were turned into a scattered hotel to help save it from disappearing. The stone houses with slab roofs still cling to the slope and keep almost the same old shape, making the whole village look as if time has forgotten it. Because it has stayed so unusually complete, Kuripo is seen as an important heritage place and is protected very carefully so it does not lose its historic form. Maybe that is why this tiny village does not stay in people's minds through size, but through the way it still quietly holds on to the soul of the mountains across the years. Meteora, Greece. Meteora's towering pillars, reaching nearly 400 meters, strike the sky like an impossible bridge between the earth and the clouds. Every year, over 2 million travelers climb the steep and narrow stone steps to experience this rare harmony of wild nature and spiritual design. When morning mist blankets the plains, the rock bases vanish, transforming the monasteries into floating kingdoms suspended in mid-air. Born 60 million years ago, these vertical monoliths were sculpted by tectonic shifts and the relentless carving of wind and rain across eras. In the 14th century, monks reached these dizzying summits, using only rope ladders and nets to carry every single stone up hundreds of feet. This breathtaking landscape stands as a monument to human courage, proving that faith can flourish even in the most unreachable heights. Aiguille du Midi Station, France. A giant metal structure is nailed onto a stone needle that tears through the European sky, and Aiguille du Midi stands at about 12,605 feet. The cable car has run since 1955 and held the world's highest title for nearly 20 years, and it is still famous for a near-vertical rise of about 9,210 feet from the valley up to the summit. Inside, you cross a short steel bridge hanging over space to reach another section, while outside the station is fully exposed to storms with gusts up to about 120 miles per hour. The ride takes only about 20 minutes, but the rapid altitude gain can make ears pop, heads spin, and breathing feel heavier. The most extreme moment is stepping into the clear glass box that sticks out over the edge, with more than 3,300 feet of free fall under your feet. Because the terrain is so dangerous, visitors mostly stay within tunnels and viewing terraces, and since 2016, an enclosed loop walkway lets you circle the summit with a little more protection. Gruyères. Perched on a lush green hill, this town feels like a fairy tale dream, where the sound of cowbells drifts through very quiet air. Around the red roofs, green vineyard slopes wrap the town and make the whole place look as if it is resting inside a soft, bright painting. Yet in the middle of that dreamy beauty stands a monster museum and a strange bone-like bar, giving the scene a sudden dark twist. This is also the home of famous Gruyère cheese, a cheese that has kept almost the same recipe for 800 years. At the highest point, a castle built in the year 1270 still looks down over the town, holding the memory of the 19 counts who once ruled here. On the house fronts, paintings from the 16th century were made on wet plaster, so their colors could last for centuries, making the whole town feel as if time itself has been held in place. Pitigliano, Italy. Pitigliano feels like a living form rising from volcanic rock, as if people only reshaped what the earth had already made. Because the top is narrow, homes grow upward and press together like dominoes, while below them runs a maze of cellars and tunnels carved straight into stone to link the town. Few expect it is also nicknamed Little Jerusalem, with a historic Jewish quarter and a synagogue built in 1598. The whole town sits on a block of tuff, about 1,000 feet high, with deep gorges on three sides, so it reads like a rock island, cut off from the world. Many houses seem to have no normal foundation because their walls extend directly from the cliff, blurring the line between natural rock and human masonry. Above it all stands a medieval mark of power, the Orsini Palace fortress, begun in the 12th century and later strengthened with towers and perimeter walls to guard the town. Phugtal Monastery Living Quarters, India. Phugtal appears like an ancient forgotten chapter within the limestone canyon, where mud housing blocks resiliently defy the harshness of space. Standing from the opposite cliff, you see pure white rooms clinging to the rock face like swallow nests, with precarious paths that lack any protective railings. At an altitude of 12,631 feet, folk engineers built walls facing south to trap solar heat, helping residents survive winters of minus 22 degrees. For 800 years, this complex has stood firm despite being made only of mud, stone chips, and juniper branches without a single grain of modern cement. The geological wonder is clear. Through the sacred juniper tree growing from solid stone and the natural cave systems acting as the core support for the rooms. To reach this isolated wonder, you must undertake a grueling 2-day trek because the world of machinery is completely rejected here. Unterschichen. Leave the noise behind, and you find a village held tightly between giant limestone walls rising thousands of feet, making the whole valley feel like a closed bowl of stone. On the steep mountainsides, Small cabins do not mainly carry tourists, but milk, hay, and daily supplies to cliff farms, showing how life here still depends on everyday work. Winter makes it even harsher, with snow sometimes deeper than 10 feet, and the danger of avalanches always hanging over the narrow slopes. In that setting, old wooden houses darkened by years of sun and snow stand out on bright green grass, creating a beauty that feels both unusual and deep. But this place is never lifeless, because falling water from the mountainsides mixes with cowbells and becomes the true rhythm of an old farming land. Maybe that is why many people see it as a picture of original Switzerland, a place that still holds the self-reliant and strong spirit of the early mountain people. Appenzell. Appenzell feels like a living tapestry of color, where the Hauptgasse main street is lined with brilliantly hand-painted wooden houses. The devotion to tradition here was so strong that women officially gained the right to vote only in 1990, after a long and difficult struggle. With only about 16,000 residents, this smaller Swiss canton still stands like a fortress, protecting the pure spirit of the Alps. Around it, crystal-clear emerald lakes rest between smooth green pastures and steep limestone cliffs, creating a landscape that feels both gentle and dramatic. The region is also famous for its powerful mix of ancient farming life and endlessly rich natural beauty. Altogether, this place feels less like a modern town and more like a rare corner of Europe where old alpine identity still breathes in full color. Capena Monastery, Greece. Instead of sitting on a slope, Capena feels inlaid into a vertical limestone wall, tucked under a natural rock overhang at about 2,000 feet above sea level. Inside, old frescoes and weathered icons cling to rough, cool stone, and the air feels like the Middle Ages never left. The only entrance is a wooden bridge about 13 feet long that can be pulled back inside, turning the monastery into a hard-to-reach stronghold. Local sources say it was begun in 1212 by the monk Gregorios and dedicated to the Virgin Mary in Orthodox tradition. During Ottoman times, it was also remembered as a secret school and a hiding place for locals, so every carved step carries a survival story. Behind the small chapel, a cave system runs about 787 feet into the mountain, once sheltering hundreds of refugees in wartime. Civita di Bagnoregio, Italy. Cruelly eaten away by nature, Civita di Bagnoregio feels like it is counting down the days before it collapses into the abyss. The only way in is a narrow, steep concrete bridge almost 1,000 feet long, built in 1965, and you pay a ticket just to cross it, like entering a museum that is fading. Geologists estimate the cliffs retreat about 3 inches each year, and a major quake in the late 17th century tore away a huge section and cut old roots. Built by the Etruscans before Rome, it now has only about 11 permanent residents, so the silence feels almost unreal. Inside are cobblestone lanes, vine-covered arches, and flowered balconies, while below the houses run tunnels, caves, and wells carved into soft rock to catch rainwater. Visitor fees are pushed straight into reinforcement work, from hidden grout injections to steel anchors, trying to hold the rock island together a little longer. Andermatt. In the heart of the Alps, Andermatt is called the Crossroads of Clouds because several great mountain passes meet here. When winter arrives, snowfall can reach 40 feet, covering the whole valley and turning it into a cold, white sea. In the middle of that scene, an old stone bridge still crosses a deep gorge in haunting silence, while the river below roars wildly between bare rock walls. Since Roman times, this has been a vital crossing point, where roads opened toward four great directions of Europe for both trade and armies. Today, Andermatt is also an important stop on a famous slow mountain train that carries people across cliffs and high bridges in the sky. That is why the contrast between cold military bunkers hidden in the mountain and shining glass hotels outside makes this town feel both mysterious and luxurious. Abuna Yamatagu, Ethiopia. Standing tall in northern Ethiopia, this monolithic rock temple is considered the most dangerous and inaccessible sanctuary on the planet. The most haunting sight is a small, open-air rock hollow right outside the cliff, storing countless skulls of monks who entrusted their entire lives in mid-air. Since the 6th century, ancient people used bare hands to carve the hard cliff, creating an architectural wonder suspended in defiance of all gravity laws for almost 1,500 years. It is unbelievable that locals insist no life has ever fallen into this deadly abyss, as if angels always protect their every little footstep. Swallow's Nest, Crimea/Ukraine. Like a gemstone set on the edge of an abyss, Swallow's Nest carries a romantic beauty with real risk above the Black Sea. In a neo-Gothic look, it was built in 1911 to 1912 by architect Leonard Sherwood for an oil-rich baron, meant as a view villa rather than a fortress. Few people realize an earlier wooden cottage stood here around 1895, romantically nicknamed the Castle of Love, before the stone castle replaced it. Do not let the facade fool you. It is only about 66 feet long and 33 feet wide, yet it sits on a limestone spur about 131 feet above the sea, with just one foyer, one living room, and 2 bedrooms at first. In 1927, a roughly 7-magnitude earthquake cracked the cliff beneath it, making the site feel one tremor away from disaster. On foggy days, the cliff vanishes into white cloud, and the castle looks like a magical ship floating in mid-air, cut off from the real world. Bet Meralp. Resting on a sunny mountain plateau about 6,500 feet high, this village feels light and calm, as if it were floating above the slopes below. In winter, life almost begins right outside the door, because people can ski straight into the village, and even the shops have ski stands instead of parking spaces. With nearly 300 days of sunshine each year, the whole landscape rarely feels dull and usually looks bright, open, and very clear. And because there is no road for cars and the only way up is by cable car, the village keeps a rare kind of quiet and clean mountain air. What feels most impressive is that close by lies the largest glacier in the Alps, stretching for more than 12 miles, weighing around 10 billion tons, and belonging to a UNESCO World Heritage Landscape. From the viewpoints around the village, you can also see as many as 40 peaks higher than 13,000 feet, which makes the beauty here feel not only peaceful, but also vast and powerful. Paro Taktsang, Bhutan. Paro Taktsang stands as a miraculous fortress of faith, anchored to the jagged precipices of the Himalayas. Ancient stories tell of a great master who reached this mountain peak on the back of a celestial tigress to conquer the darkness. Floating at over 3,100 meters, the oxygen is so scarce that it requires immense willpower for travelers just to reach the summit. Without any modern machinery, the entire complex was crafted by hand using materials carried through miles of vertical terrain. Bright white facades and golden roofs glow intensely against the dark stone, while a hidden waterfall thunders in the background. Standing strong after a tragic fire in the late 90s, this sanctuary remains a testament to the unshakable peace of its people. Sonogno. At the place where the road reaches its end and is stopped by stone mountains, this village appears like a lonely fortress held inside a cold world of granite. As evening comes, the narrow stone lanes and grey walls make the whole place feel even quieter, as if time itself had forgotten it among the high mountains. That silence is then torn open by the roar of a waterfall nearly 260 feet high, throwing pale mist around the edge of the village. In that far-end world, the old stone houses have stood close together for centuries, built from heavy blocks to resist winter and snowstorms. In strong contrast, a clear turquoise river runs through white stones and suddenly lights up the cold grey view. Today, fewer than 100 people still live here, and the old paths, dark doorways, and slow rhythm make it feel like a piece of the Middle Ages left at the end of the world. Evolène. Hidden in a high mountain valley, Evolène feels simple and real, with dark wooden houses and a rhythm of life that seems slower than the outside world. Because it has kept its old village shape in such an open mountain setting, the whole place feels carefully protected and wonderfully complete. Just standing in the village, you already feel the huge sky and the wide slopes opening all around you, so its beauty carries a strong sense of freedom. What makes it even more special is that tradition is still truly alive here, from old dress to the local patois that many people still understand and still use at home. Evelyn was already mentioned in the year 1250, and through the centuries, its old houses and quiet lanes have kept a beauty that feels deep and lasting. Maybe that is why this place does not impress people with luxury, but with the feeling that in modern life, one corner of the mountains has remained slow, strong, and true. Saint-Michel-d'Aiguille, France. Saint-Michel-d'Aiguille serves as a sacred guardian, watching over the ancient French pilgrimage routes from its lofty heights. From a distance, this structure resembles a precious jewel carefully placed atop a giant stone spear piercing the vast sky. To reach the summit, one must conquer 268 winding steps, where every stride is met with a physical challenge and strong winds. This monolith is actually the remnant of a cooled magma core from millions of years ago, standing firm after the surrounding soft earth eroded away. Standing at the very top, the sensation of floating in the air makes the human soul feel lifted far above the worries of the world below. Refuge des Cosmiques, France. Like a spacecraft abandoned on a stone ridge of the Alps, this shelter hovers at an altitude of 11,854 feet amid vast ice and snow. To preserve the purity of the ice core, all waste is strictly collected and airlifted out by helicopter. Hundreds of people must share cramped bunk bed spaces, forming a temporary survival community completely isolated from the world. Even in mid-July, the station faces threatening winds of 124 miles per hour and temperatures of -4 degrees Fahrenheit. The silence is torn apart at 1 in the morning as groups prepare to conquer the cliffs under the dim glow of flashlights. Jiangnan Xuankong Temple, China. This is a temple that dares gravity, clinging to a sheer limestone wall and looking like it hangs in open air. With a small shift in viewpoint, the whole mountain reads like a natural standing Buddha about 482 feet tall, with a head around 136 feet. The complex sits at roughly 1,923 feet, and it is often dated back to the Yuan era, during the Dade years from 1297 to 1307. Its layout is unusual. One half is tucked into a cave, while the other half reaches out over the drop, making every step feel exposed. Along the cliff edge runs a stone corridor known as Tianzhan Yundu, while wooden posts and mortise and tenon joints are set into the rock to steady the hanging sections. After more than 700 years of storms, frost, and vibration, it still holds on, like a quiet test of craft and belief. Casa do Penedo, Portugal. Imagine a crack from the Stone Age hiding in the modern world, where people chose to live inside rock to escape everything. It started as a private retreat, but crowds and vandalism pushed the owner to add a steel door weighing several hundred pounds and thick, bullet-resistant windows, and then walk away, leaving only wind and silence. Built over 2 years from 1972 to 1974, it was mainly sealed by pouring concrete into gaps, so the interior has almost no right angles, and every surface bends with the boulders. It even followed an unusual build sequence. It was inaugurated on October 13, 1974, and the roof was reportedly done first to lock the structure into the natural stone. The house sits near 2,600 feet above sea level, fully exposed, with hard winds hitting it year-round. And the irony is that even beside a modern wind turbine field, the house itself has no electricity at all, keeping its primitive feel intact. Casas Colgadas, Spain. If you drop something from a Casas Colgadas balcony, you hear only an echo coming back from about 200 feet below, reminding you how close the void is. That cliffside daring helped the surrounding historic quarter earn UNESCO World Heritage status in 1996. Among the 3 surviving houses, one now hosts Spain's Abstract Art Museum, opened in 1966 on the initiative of painter Fernando Zobel. Once judged too risky and nearly lost, they were stabilized with steel beams anchored deep into limestone to keep the structures gripping the cliff. At sunset, lights wash the rock face, and the row reads like a haunted fortress floating above a canyon, as if time paused 500 years ago. Cliff Palace, United States. Cruelly swallowed into a sandstone alcove, Cliff Palace is a cliff city begun around 1190 and left behind by about 1300, silent for centuries. The eeriest spaces are 23 round kiva ceremonial rooms where people climbed down a ladder and slipped through a small roof opening to hold rituals in darkness. The complex rises up to 4 stories and was built by hand with sandstone and mud mortar mixed with ash, without relying on wheels or draft animals. Strangely, it was not rediscovered until December 1888, when searchers looking for stray cattle stumbled onto it and the ghost city began to reappear to the world. A great sandstone overhang helped shield much of it from weather and protected status as a national park since 1906 is a big reason it still survives today. Stauby Fall. The name of this waterfall means dust, because from far away it already looks like a white storm flying between dark cliffs. The strangest part is that at the bottom, there is not a deep and dangerous pool, but a bright green field where cows still graze calmly as if no danger were standing beside them. That is why the sight of this violent waterfall crashing down beside a few small wooden huts in such a peaceful meadow feels almost unreal. From almost 600 feet high, the huge mass of water falls so hard that the wind tears it into thick mist, and many times you cannot clearly see where it reaches the ground. Even though the valley itself is very quiet, the roar of the falls keeps sounding like thunder, shaking the air and making people feel much smaller. To survive the wild wind from the waterfall and the harsh winter, the hut roofs are held down by stone blocks weighing hundreds of pounds, so people use them only for a short part of the summer. Bavona Valley. Its beauty does not come from luxury, but from a narrow mountain trench filled with giant stones piled up as if nature had just thrown them there. What is even stranger is that even with power plants all around, this whole valley still lives almost outside the national grid. So night here is lit mainly by candles, gas lamps, and a few small solar panels. Because farmland is so rare, people once had to carry basket after basket of soil onto the tops of rocks to create tiny gardens hanging in the open air. For a very long time, they also cut into the lower parts of stones or built walls under huge boulders to make homes, cheese cellars, and animal shelters. Over time, green moss spread across old ruins and cold grey rock, giving the whole valley a beauty that feels both haunted and strangely gentle. Maybe that is why, when more than 70% of its more than 30,000 acres is only stone and only about 2% can be farmed, every green patch here looks like a small miracle of life. Murren. Floating like an island above the clouds, this village clings to a rocky shelf about 5,400 feet high, right beside a deep drop, making it feel as if the whole place is hanging in the sky. What makes it even stranger is that when the valley below disappears under a thick sea of fog, this village can still stay full of sunlight, almost cut off from the earth below. Because of that position, it is often seen as a great balcony of the Alps, where you can look straight across at 3 giant icy peaks, rising more than 13,000 feet high. But to reach that beauty, no one can simply drive up, because there is no road for cars, and everyone must come by cable car train, or on foot. Once a hiding place for poor farmers, it later became famous around the world when the snowy summit above was chosen as a setting in the 007 film series. Along the cliff edge, small wooden houses still hold on bravely to the rock, making the whole village feel fragile, elegant, and breathtaking at the same time. Guyara Village appears like a fairy tale village resting on the Engadine slopes, where time seems to slow down and protect the quiet beauty of the Alps. One of its most distinctive features is the sgraffito decoration on the walls, where fine patterns are carved directly into plaster to preserve local stories and tradition. Because it has stayed faithful to its old architecture, the village received the Wacker Prize as recognition for protecting its heritage from modern sprawl. Sitting more than 5,400 feet above sea level, it opens towards snowy peaks that often glow pink in the evening light. Its Engadine houses are also known for their funnel-shaped windows, carefully designed to bring in sunlight while helping the interiors stay warm. More than a beautiful destination, it feels like one of the last strongholds of the Romansh language, still guarding the spirit of an older alpine world. Jinxie Ancient Town. Two-story wooden houses with traditional grey-tiled roofs and carved facades reflect onto the calm canal surface, creating a scene reminiscent of ink-wash paintings. Jinxie is not merely a historical relic, it is a living museum of authentic Chinese canal town life. The town boasts over 1,000 years of history and once served as a residence for merchants, scholars, and artisans during the prosperous era of the Jiangnan region. Located in the southern part of Jiangsu Province, Jingxi Ancient Town is a canal-side heritage site defined by a network of 16 ancient stone bridges spanning less than 1 mile. A boat ride under the stone bridges, accompanied by the gentle splash of paddles, offers an intimate glimpse into the enduring character of this ancient settlement. Pingle, Ancient Town. On the main streets, old tea houses operate from morning until evening, where locals gather to play chess, tell stories, and sip jasmine tea. A remarkable feature of Pingle is its ancient stone irrigation system, which still functions to distribute water for the surrounding agricultural areas. Located about 56 miles southwest of Chengdu, Pingle Ancient Town is a historic settlement with over 2,000 years of history that once played a vital role on the ancient Tea Horse Road. This provides an authentic insight into traditional ways of living, harmoniously blending architecture, history, and daily culture. The town is surrounded by bamboo forests and the Baimo River, with stone bridges connecting cobbled streets, forming a traditional transportation network still in use today. Pingle, Ancient Town. On the main streets, old tea houses operate from morning until evening, where locals gather to play chess, tell stories, and sip jasmine tea. A remarkable feature of Pingle is its ancient stone irrigation system, which still functions to distribute water for the surrounding agricultural areas. Located about 56 miles southwest of Chengdu, Pingle Ancient Town is a historic settlement with over 2,000 years of history that once played a vital role on the ancient Tea Horse Road. This provides an authentic insight into traditional ways of living, harmoniously blending architecture, history, and daily culture. The town is surrounded by bamboo forests and the Baimo River, with stone bridges connecting cobbled streets, forming a traditional transportation network still in use today. Langda Miao Village. The village is surrounded by layered rice terraces and lush bamboo groves, forming a vivid and unspoiled natural panorama. Langde lacks modern concrete roads. Instead, stone-paved paths and wooden bridges connect the homes, giving visitors a sense of being in a world untouched by time. More than just a place to live, Langde is a living museum of ethnic culture that draws travelers eager to explore China's minority heritage. Traditional festivals occur year-round, featuring drum dances, reed pipe performances, and antiphonal singing held in the village's packed earth square. Locals still wear traditional garments, with intricately embroidered dresses and handcrafted silver jewelry handed down through families. Baisha. Baisha is not only a living heritage of the Naxi people, but also an open window into the region's multicultural history. Sitting at an elevation of around 8,200 feet above sea level, the clear air and natural light enhance the vivid tones of each building. Located at the foot of Jade Dragon Snow Mountain, Baisha is one of the oldest towns in the Lijiang area, with a history spanning over 1,000 years. Visitors can easily stroll along the quiet lanes, where local life moves slowly and remains largely untouched by modernization. A major highlight of Baisha is its 15th century murals that blend Han, Tibetan, and Naxi artistic techniques, creating a unique collection of religious artwork. Yujing Village. Seen from above, the Tulu in Yujing Village are arranged in a symmetric pattern resembling a stone blossom, earning the nickname "fried eggs in a wok." Each Tulu centers around an open courtyard, surrounded by 3 to 5 floors of connected rooms, with each level serving specific functions, such as storage, cooking, and living spaces. Today, Yujing Village stands not only as a destination for global travelers, but as a vivid testament to the intersection of architecture, culture, and nature. Built since the 15th century, these structures have endured generations, and reveal an ancient understanding of sustainable material selection and spatial planning. These buildings, circular and square in shape, are constructed entirely from rammed earth, stone, and timber, forming solid structures that serve both defensive purposes and adaptation to mountain climates. Jingxi Ancient Town. Two-story wooden houses with traditional grey-tiled roofs and carved facades reflect onto the calm canal surface, creating a scene reminiscent of ink wash paintings. Jingxi is not merely a historical relic, it is a living museum of authentic Chinese canal town life. The town boasts over 1,000 years of history and once served as a residence for merchants, scholars, and artisans during the prosperous era of the Jiangnan region. Located in the southern part of Jiangsu province, Jingxi Ancient Town is a canal-side heritage site defined by a network of 16 ancient stone bridges spanning less than 1 mile. A boat ride under the stone bridges, accompanied by the gentle splash of paddles, offers an intimate glimpse into the enduring character of this ancient settlement. Guoliang. Despite growing tourism, Guoliang has retained its rustic character and traditional way of life. Tucked into the cliffs of the Taihang Mountains, it is a village entirely built from reddish local stone. Stone houses are built from tightly stacked blocks, blending seamlessly with the surrounding rocky landscape. Before the tunnel was built, the village, perched at about 1,700 feet above sea level, was completely isolated from the outside world. The tunnel hugs the mountainside with rectangular windows that open directly to a jaw-dropping cliff view, making it one of the world's most thrilling roads.